Good morning, everybody. Apologies for the slight delay this morning. I think I've got a little bit of a time delay going on the computer as well, so just bear with me a couple more minutes, and we'll be back, and we'll start going through today's races, day 4 of glorious Goodwood. I just had a couple of technical hitches this morning, absolutely typical. Everything working absolutely fine until I hit the go live button on the software this morning. So please just bear with me for a couple more minutes while we get that sorted, and then we'll crack on into today's racing. Glorious Goodwood Day 4. It certainly is glorious. I don't know if it's as hot where you are as it is as hot where I am, but it's absolutely scorching hot day today. Absolutely boiling. So it's beautiful. I hope you've already got your selections planned for today, and you know the horses that you are going to be following. So I'm just going to open up some tabs while people come in. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining today. Hopefully we're going to be catching up. There was a bit of a delay this morning on my software, on my screen, and I can see there's still a little bit of a time delay going on. So hopefully that's going to catch up over the next minute or so. Right, there we go. I just refreshed the browser on my side. I can see I've now got the strong signal. Everything's looking good. So we're going to crack on today. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for joining me for day 4. My name's Michael Wilding with the Race Advisor at www.raceadvisor.co.uk. If you haven't yet followed us on Facebook, please do hit the follow button if you're over on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Morning, David. Thank you for joining today over on YouTube. Morning, Winston. Will, thank you very much. Ray has already dropped in a selection for us today, so I'm just going to drop that on your screen so you can see that. Here is race selection in the 110 today. So yesterday was a tough day, not quite as hard as the day before. And actually, yesterday was quite an interesting case again of how important bet structure actually is when it comes to deciding how you're going to bet on your selections, because you can actually, it can be the difference between profit and loss. So for me, yesterday, I lost just under half a unit at Goodwood. And but if we looked at the selections that we went through, if we looked at our analysis, most of the analysis that we did in most of the races was actually spot on. There was only one race where we didn't get a horse placing. And in most races, we had a couple of strong contenders. I think one we had 3, and maybe 1 or 2 we had 1. But generally speaking, every single race of R1 we got a horse placing. Now, if I bet on all of those horses to place yesterday, it would have been a great day. It would have been a great day. And in fact, it was the novices race that where I kind of followed the market, and the horse didn't run very well. That was the one that caused me the loss yesterday, which is fine. I'm okay with that because that's not a race I would normally bet in. It was a fun day. I was watching all the races, so that's fine. Outside of that race, we pretty much got every single race right. The analysis was strong, and we did well. So, morning, John. Thank you for joining. If you have just joined, welcome. Please do hit the like button, the thumbs up button. Please do share this as well on your social media accounts. That'd be really great. I've just dropped up race selection for today in the 110, so you can see what's happening there. We're just catching up a little bit because I had a few technical difficulties this morning. Pretty much the second I hit the go live button today, the computer crashed, our live software crashed, and up till then, of course, it was fine. And I think it's probably something to do with the very hot temperatures that you had. So today I was planning on doing this live event from outside until I realized that all my children are going to be outside. So it's not going to be a particularly quiet or focused environment to be analysing horse races in, having a 2-year-old and a 3.5-year-old charging around all the time. So still indoors, still hot. I can feel the fans on the computer over here whirring powerfully. So a number of people are still joining in. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. While we're waiting for some people to drop in, I'm just going to show my screen here so you can see that. I'm going to make myself a bit smaller because that's probably enough of me full screen for today. So today, like the other days, we're going to go through every race at Goodwood. I would like to say I'm going to do it in an hour and a half, but history tells me it's probably going to be more like 1 hour 45. So please do stay with me throughout the whole thing. Don't forget you can drop headphones in if you're on a mobile device. Put some headphones in, take it outside, enjoy the weather, get a drink, grab a notebook. If you've already got selections for today, I would love to know who you're going to be following, why you're going to be following them, if you agree with my analysis or if you disagree with my analysis. Either way, it's all good. So please do drop that into the chat. Join in the conversation. Let us know who you're following, which horses you like. Let us know how you've been doing so far in the previous 3 days. Have those 3 days so far been good for you or bad for you? For me personally, they've been not too bad. Not the best I've ever seen, but definitely not the worst. I've had a small loss the last couple of days. The first day I had a really good day, so that's kind of balanced out. As we were just saying yesterday, we actually did really, really well. My personal bet structure meant I made a small half unit loss, but we got 2 winners and almost every race except for one. We found the horse that was placing, and some of those were at very, very high odds. Well, very, very high, at high odds anyway. So that was all good. If you just come in, welcome. Thank you for joining. If you're over on YouTube, on this side of the screen, you're going to see a chat box. Please do chat, come in, say hi, drop a message, and tell us who you're going to be following, what you'd like to see. If you're on Facebook, underneath, you're going to see the comments section. Please do leave a comment on Facebook. The comments are effectively the chat. So leave a comment if you're on Facebook. And whatever platform you're on, please do hit the like button and the share button, and let the social media channels, let YouTube, let Facebook know you like what we're doing, let your friends know that you like what's going on at the Race Advisor. If you've not yet registered at the Race Advisor, head over to www.raceadvisor.co.uk to create an account. Okay, so there are still people coming in, and I can see that, but we're going to get started anyway. Welcome, Euroloco. Great to see you again. Thank you for coming back. Bruce, great to see you again. John, over on Facebook, thank you. Welcome back. Let's see what we can do today. Okay, today I've also been a bit more sensible. I've got a big glass of water for the temperature, and it's not fizzy. So I learned my lesson on that one yesterday. Okay, Scott. Good morning, Scott. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to jump straight in to the 110. And as always, I've not looked at these races at all. Everything that we're going to do here is going to be straight off live. What you see is what you get. We're going to go through this exactly as they are live, seeing what information we can pick up, and seeing which we think the strongest horses are going to be today. Okay, so it's the 110, the TDN Australia handicap. Obviously, the ground's going to be good. I'd be surprised if it wasn't firm, to be honest. Distance, 1 mile, 3 furlongs, 9 runners. Prize money, just under £9,500. We get all of this information just up here at the top of the race card. So nice and easy to see, and we can get into it very, very quickly without any difficulty. So this race has 9 runners. I'm going to start as the way I traditionally like to start on these big events is sorting by the Betfair odds, because I'm going to remove any horse that's over 29 to 1 or 30 on Betfair, sometimes called the machine. Not quite sure why Betfair's called the machine, but has always been called the machine. Maybe one of you can enlighten me to that little piece of information. It's just some colloquial language that we kind of used for years. But yeah, so taking those 2 horses out, those 2 horses being Aquascape, Summit Rich. Scrolling down, we can actually see the First King's already a non-runner in this race as well. So we're now down to 7 horses in the field. And look, we got some nice pink arrows and blue arrows telling us that Al Kakar is the favourite and the odds are shortening, and pretty much all the other runners are slowly over the last kind of 60 seconds. I think it's 60 seconds, 120 seconds. Anyway, they're drifting mildly. So that will change throughout the course of the day, depending on what the markets are doing. And then going to come over to the PR odds. I'm going to sort by PR odds. PR odds is our tissue line. If you're new with us today, PR odds is our odds line. It's our tissue line. It tells us, it's merged with the live market, and it tells us which horses we think are likely to be the strongest. Now, I'm going to actually sort by probability first. And here are the top 3 horses by probability. Next, I'm going to sort by the actual PR odds column here. And I'm going to hide that, and I can see that Berkshire Savvy is in the top 3, and Celestran is also in the top 4. So these two are interesting to me. First impression, not looking so strong and has high odds, so I'm going to unselect that. I'm just going to go through today this race, just kind of marking those which are very strong initially and unmarking those that aren't. So coming into the 5278, the 5278 is a compilation rating. That means it's made up of a lot of other ratings or pieces of information, and they're all combined together, compiled together to give us a score for each horse. And depending on the race conditions, between 52% and 78% of the winners come from the top 4. And we can see Celestran is in that top 4. Berkshire Savvy is not. So for the moment, I'm just going to unselect Berkshire Savvy. We can always add these runners back in later, so it's nothing to worry about. Okay, so this is a 1 mile 3 furlong race. I'm just going to sort here by best ever speed, and again Celestran is sitting in there, but we've also now got Cephas and Alcacar, so I'm going to bring those 2 in. Going along, I'm going to look at average competitive class, and again we've got Celestran sitting at the top, Alcacar next, Cephas falling a little bit behind. So I'm going to move Cephas out, and I'm looking here. I'm using a bit of a different technique here, but I'm just removing horses based on different factors, as you can see. So again, Celestran, Alcacar here for the PFP, and then we've also got Mafia Power coming in 3rd. We've not had Mafia Power in yet. So that's kind of those ratings there. So we're looking here at a very quick glance. We're looking at Celestran, Alcacar probably being the strongest. Mafia Power and Cephas are maybe a little bit behind, but possible. Then we're going to run the Monte Carlo simulator, and we're going to run that on the standard race card. This simulates the race taking place. It's going to do 1,000 simulations, and the way the simulations work is it pits one horse against another horse for a single rating, and it runs 1,000 simulations of which of those horses is going to win the race, because a rating is an estimate. There's variance in rating. We think it's this, the rating is this score, but it could be a bit higher, it could be a bit lower. And what the simulation does, it takes that highest point, that lowest point for each horse, and it chooses randomly a score somewhere in between those 2 points. And it will take 2 horses and do that for both of them, go which one won the race. It does that 1,000 times, and then it does 1,000 times for every single pair of horses, and then it does that 1,000 times for every rating for every single pair of horses. So it's a lot of simulations. For example, in this race, we've got 7. We've actually got 9 runners. So that's do you know what? I'm not even going to try and work out the maths, because I thought it was going to be fairly simple to do in my head, and actually it's not, because we've got a lot of ratings as well. Anyway, so that's how the Monte Carlo simulator works. The simulation's finished. I've come out of it. I'm now going back in it. I'm going to sort by horse. Okay, so sorting by horse, we actually see Celestran, Alcacar, and Mafia Power. Those 3 we've already said look to be strong, are still strong. Cephas is also just following in behind that. Interestingly, this 3rd number in from the left on each horse, 1.91 for Celestran, is indicating that this horse at 1.91 has got a good impact value in this race, i.e. it should be profitable to bet. We would expect this horse to have odds of closer, based purely on the Monte Carlo simulation, nothing else. We would expect this horse to have odds of closer to 4 to 1. And it's currently sitting at 9.8. Okay, so that's simulation. We've got those 3 horses there. Now, what are we going to do next? This is a 1 mile 3 furlong race. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump in and see the horse history, see if these horses have competed under similar conditions before, and are they likely to be able to do it again. So let me open up the horse history, and you can see here we've got Alcacar. Now I'm just going to jump over to make sure everything's working fine, since we did have a couple of technical issues this morning. Make sure that everything is working fine there for us, and it looks like it's all good. No one's saying that they've got problems, which is absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to keep going, and then we're going to look through the horse histories of these horses. Then I'm going to look at the market, then I'm going to come to you to ask you who you think is the strongest in this race? Which horses do you like? And have you already got a bet on some of them, maybe? How are you going to structure your bet? So, and let's keep going through these horses for the moment. So Al-Kakar here, just to remind you, this race is a class 3, flat turf, obviously, class 3, 1 mile, 3 furlongs. Prize money is just under £9,500, so it's not a high class race. The official class is 3, but I prefer to use prize money rather than official classes. So coming in here, we can first of all see straight down, the class of this race is lower, but it shouldn't be anything too drastic. We've got 2 races here, one on the 27th of June at the top, and then one on the 11th of June over a similar distance. Ground condition on both was good to firm, and that's great because that's going to match today's ground condition. The weight carried was 9.5. Today, Al-Kakar is actually carrying 9.6, and there's no jockey allowance for this runner. So all of that information tells us we've got 2 similar races. In one of those races, the horse won by 8 lengths. I mean, that is a win. That is a easy win. Al-Kakar showing that this horse has superb performance. Now, the previous race, which was only 16 days before, the horse came third, but was only beaten by 0.8 lengths. So hovering over this horse, we get the in-running comment. So we can see that it tracked the leaders, pushed along, made a challenge 2 furlongs out, but was short of room 1 furlong out, and then kept on well. This indicates that the horse possibly would have performed better, most likely would have won, only being 0.8 lengths behind the winner, if it hadn't got short of room and actually could have got out and made it all to the end, particularly based on its next performance in a very similar race where it won by 8 lengths. Okay, so that's Al-Kakar. Let's come down to Celestrin. Okay, so Celestrin. We've got more races. Well, I think it's only one more race here for Celestrin, but we've got a couple of similar or higher classes. We've got a class 1, we've got a class 2. So the first thing to know is the distances of most of these races are very similar. We've got 2 1 mile 3 furlongs at the top, and then a 1 mile 2 furlong previous to that, before dropping down at the end of last year to a 1 mile 1 furlong on the all-weather. The similar races up here are all on good or good to firm ground, and one of them, the horse was carrying in the lower class 1, the horse was carrying 9 stone 7 pound. Today the horse is carrying 9 stone 6, so similar to this race, but less than these ones up here. Now the distance is the same, but the class is dropping, but the class isn't dropping that much from its last race where it was only carrying 8 stone 13. Don't forget, this is 1 mile 3 furlong race, so weight is going to make an impact here. It won by 1.5 lengths on the good to firm when it was carrying 9 to 7, but in a lower class. Then in the higher class races, and most recent race being a similar class, the horse was beaten by 4.5 lengths and 5.3 lengths, so didn't really contend. And the in-running comments are telling us that it went well inside the final furlong, but couldn't match the winner. And again, took a keen hold, tracked the winner, but was outpaced. So there's a concern that this horse is possibly going to be outpaced, especially since it's carrying 7 pounds more, 7 or 8 pounds more than its last race, 7 pounds more than the previous one. So there's a bit of concern there over Celestrin. Now, next we're coming over to Mafia Power. And Mafia Power here is we got, again, coming down here, we can see all lower class races, races. 1 all-weather there at Kempton. 1 mile 2 furlongs, got an extra furlong to run today. The last race was good to soft, and it won nicely on it, very comfortably, carrying 9.6. Its previous races on firmer ground, this one here hasn't been so good. There was a race back in 2019 on soft ground where it was also beaten. But this horse looks a little bit volatile. It lost 2 places in the final 110 yards of this race here at Newmarket on the 20th of June because it just didn't have enough to take it to the end. And that was on good ground, over 1 mile 2 furlongs, carrying 8.12. Today, this horse is carrying 9.3. So it's carrying more weight. It's in a higher class race. It's traveling a furlong longer. So, and it couldn't make it all in that last one. It did very well into the last 110 yards. So the longer distance, I'm not so sure about. However, this 1 mile 2 furlong on slightly softer ground, carrying similar weight today, it did very well. Came in at 4.5 lengths. But look at the class; it was a 3 grand race, a low class race. So I've got some concern over whether this horse has actually got it all to do. So for me at the moment, coming back over to the main race card, it looks like Alcacar, who is currently the market favourite, is going to be the horse to beat in this first race, ridden by Jim Crowley. So I'm just going to come over to the market, and while I'm coming over to the market, I'm going to jump back into the chat to see who you think is strong in this race. So if you've not put it in yet, please do put it in. Okay, so I'm coming back here. So Scott likes Big Mac. Now, I haven't even seen Big Mac in this race. There isn't a Big Mac in this race. So, Scott, you must be talking about another race. You'll know, if you're new to the race advisor, you will know I am not like a lot of people you will see talking about horse racing. I famously say I don't know horses, I know numbers. So if people give me horse names and their breeding history and information like that, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I've even sat on panels where I've been chatting and all the people next to me have been talking about the history of the horse and its breeding and what that means and how the trainers work, and I have that is not the angle I come from. I look at numbers, I look at performance, I look at form. The horse name doesn't really mean much to me. It doesn't bother me. I don't really mind what a horse is called. I'm only interested in creating the picture of how it's going to compete in today's race from the other runners, so that I can compare it, so I can decide how I want to bet in the race. And that, for me, that's the focus. And that focus means that I don't get locked into the conversation about whether a horse's breeding was great or whatever. It's very different if we're looking at breeding numbers and statistics on breeding and how that affects sire is going down and the like. But horse names so don't mean much for me. So if you put a name into the chat, that's great, but could you also put the race time that the horse is running in as well? Roman's on Alcacar for the win in the first race. John Bell. John Bell, it sounds like John, sorry, over on YouTube. I'm assuming you had a good day yesterday. William has very, very kindly shared his selections for the entire day, and he is on Celestron in the 110. Ray in the 250. Aaron is on Celestron over on YouTube. Celestron and Safus in the 110. Darren's on Celestron in an 80-20. Oh, Scott, thank you, Big Mac. So Scott is answering my question on where the machine, Betfair being called the machine, where that name came from. He's saying Big Mac. Big Mac was the person who coined that phrase over there now. Thank you, Scott. I thought you were talking about a horse. Okay. Graham is on Celestron to place for 3 places. The 4 places isn't offering value. Safus, Celestron. So there's a lot of love. There's a lot of love going on for Safus and Celestron. Right, here's the market. This is what we can see here over on Goodwood in the 110 race. Alcacar 2.78. Mafia Power 6, Safus 7.8, Celestron 10. Now Celestron we kind of dropped out because there was only one real factor marking Celestron as a possibility, so I dropped that one out. And we haven't gone into a huge detail on these runners because I'm trying to get through this in better time today than the previous few days, see if I can actually make it through on schedule. So for me, it's going to be Alcacar. But let's have a look at the markets. Now, where am I? Goodwood. Okay. So here we go. Let's check out the place market first. So the place market, Alcacar is 1.42. Mafia Power 2. Safus 2.3. Celestron 2.68. Now, actually, I don't think 1.42 on Alcacar is particularly bad. And today, I'm feeling like I'm going to go a little bit safer, especially considering yesterday I managed to hit, we managed to find a place horse in every single race, and despite the competitiveness of this race, the analysis we did between us all was excellent, and we found those strongest runners in pretty much every single race. And it was just my bet structuring that meant a small half a unit loss for me yesterday. So coming over to the 4-place market, 1.23. 1.23 in the 4-place market and 1.42 in the 3-place market. Neither of those are particularly bad. you can see here, there's a tiny bet over on Safest that I've already put in. I'm trialing. So this is my fun account. This is my test Betfair account. And in it, I'm trialing a new method, a very high volume method, around 30 to 40 selections a day in it to see how that turnover works, expecting to get a 5 or 6% turnover. Anyway, more on that another time if you're interested. But that if you see a couple of small bets dotted around, I'm not sure how many have fired in yet. It could only be that one, actually, to be honest, at this time of the day. But you may see some small bets firing in as we go through this, and that's what's happening there. So for me, Alcacar, let's just have a quick look at an 80-20. If we put 20 quid on Alcacar in this market, we're going to make £8, but we're going to bet 5 on it to win. So effectively, we would walk away if the horse only came in the top 3 with a £3 profit. That represents around about a 15% return. So that would make that actually the 4th place market wouldn't really be worth me going in. So am I going to go on Alcacar for the win or for the 80-20, or of course we could just do the whole thing as a place bet and just look to make a kind of 40% return if the horse places. But I think I'm going to go 80-20. I am going to hedge my bets. I think Alcacar is probably going to be the one to beat. However, based on yesterday's experience and the fact that I haven't gone into too much detail into a lot of the other runners today in this particular race, I'm going to go 80-20. So I'm going to put £20 on Alcacar there to play. So I'm going to come over to the win market. I'm going to put a £5 for the rest of the 80-20 bet on it to win. And to be honest, if this horse still wins, I'm going to walk away with around £16 profit to a £25 bet. That's a 60% return. Thank you very much. I'm more than happy with that. Okay. So let's come back over to the race cards and let's move on to the next race. So John, just saying yesterday, coming back into the chat. Thank you, David. Thank you, Ureloko, Celestian and Safest, both on YouTube. You guys are on those. John had a brilliant day yesterday. I'm so pleased, John, that you were getting on. You found some of those selections from RA and you had an amazing day from it. So that is absolutely wonderful news. And David as well. Right. Okay. If you have just joined, I can see that we've just had about 20, 25 people or so have joined across both platforms there, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, welcome. Welcome to day 4 Goodwood Analysis with me, Michael Wilding, and the race advisor at www.raceadvisor.co.uk. If you haven't yet got your account, head over to the website, create your account. Please give us the thumbs up, the like button, hit the share button, let people know if you've just joined us. Thank you very much indeed. We've just finished the first race. If you've just joined us, I've gone on Alcacar. I've hedged my bets. I've done an 80-20 bet in the 3 place market on Alcacar. If Alcacar wins, that's going to net me around about a 60% return on investment. If Alcacar comes in the top 3, it's going to net me around a 15% return on investment. Okay, we're going to move now on to the next race, the 145 race at Goodwood. Okay, so this race is a fillies and mares race, as you can see just there. It's a Class 1 race, just under just over £28,000 in prize money, and it's a 7 furlong race. So a little bit longer than the sprint, not really medium distance. 7 furlong races are quite popular in the UK, as you'll know, but they're an interesting race because they're not a true sprint. Stamina comes into effect. Anything more than 6 furlongs is kind of not really a true sprint anymore. Excuse me while I just take a sip of water. Anything more than 6 furlongs is not really a true sprint anymore. So 7 furlongs, though, speed is a very important factor still, but it's not a true sprint. We've got to bear in mind a little bit of stamina there as well. Okay, so again, we have a lot of horses in this race. I mean, look at these 12 entries, right? So let's start by knocking out. I was about to say, let's start by knocking out all the high odds horses, and there's only one. Graceful Magic, odds of 85. And there's obviously one you can see down here at the bottom. We've already automatically eliminated Final Song, who's a non-runner from this race. That's already been pulled from our race cards because it's a non-runner in the market. Okay, so coming back here. And you know what? Maybe today, we should have a look at see if we can get a very small place accumulator across all races. That would be a little bit of fun. So starting with the first race. So do you know what? I'm going to make a note of these on a piece of paper. Let me just grab a piece of paper here, and then we'll come back to that at the end. So starting with that first race, Al Kakar. So as well as betting, since today is going to be the last day that I am doing a live for Goodwood. Tomorrow I will send out for the feature race. I'll send you an email with a link to an analysis that will be on the blog. But this is going to be the last live Goodwood analysis day today. We're going to have a little bit of fun. Let's see if we can get a nice place accumulator with horses in every race. First race, we've got Al Kakar. I'm just going to make a note of that. We'll come back to that at the end. So even if you've joined or if you join halfway through, I will go back through that at the end. Okay, coming back into the 145. This is a 7 furlong race. We've managed to knock out one runner based on odds. That's pretty poor. That's pretty poor. So let's use another method here. Let's use, no, I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use the merged market. Here we go. So I've sorted by PR odds. This is our tissue line merged in with the Betfair market. And I'm just going to highlight the horses that are at the bottom. I'm actually going to take those out, particularly if they've had days since last good race have been long. So that's going to remove Boomer, 323 days as well since last good race. It's going to remove Shan, I think that's pronounced. It's going to remove Ananerium, 426 days since last good race. And we've got Wasmia here as well. So I'm going to leave those ones in there. Invitational, 200 days since last good race. Not quite. Do I want to keep that one in? Yeah, we'll keep that horse in for now. We've already reduced the field down to 8. Let's see what else it can bring. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to use Reynolds ranking. So I haven't really used that much over the last few days. Reynolds ranking is an RR, we call it on the race card. And what this does, it takes every rating that it's possible to create a ranking for on our current race card, and it combines them all together to give us a score for the horses. And the lower the score, the better the horse. So we can see here, One Master is sitting at the top, followed by Breathtaking Look, followed by Agincourt, followed by Under the Stars. But what's really important is the difference between these horses. So we can see that One Master is significantly better than Breathtaking Breathtaking Look. And then we've got about 1.3 to the next one. So those two very much look to be the strongest. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a different race card. I'm going to look at my overview race card because that's got more factors on it. So I'm going to look at my overview race card. And you'll notice that these Reynolds ranking, these RR scores, they change because we're now using different ratings. So let's see how it stacks up with different ratings on a different race card. Effectively, we're looking at that horse and we've looked at it like this. And now we're turning it up on its side and we're looking at it like this from a different way. And when we analyze a horse race, that's actually what we want to do. We want to look at it from the left, from the right, from the top, the bottom, the front, the back, underneath. I mean, like the angle. We want to try and cover all of the angles because every angle we look at is going to give us a slightly different picture. And every time we get a slightly different picture, we understand a little bit more of the whole. So think of it like a photograph. If I took a photograph of a horse just from behind, you can see its tail and its rear. That's all you can see. You're not going to know much about the horse. If I take another photo from a slight angle behind of it, you're going to get a bit more of an idea of the type of horse it is, maybe some muscle definition. If I come around to the front, you're going to see more of the character of the horse. You're going to see its face. So we do that when we analyze a race. We want to look at all these angles, and this is why ratings will tell us different pieces of information, and they'll sometimes contradict each other because they're looking at that horse from these different angles, but looking at it from all these angles pieces together that jigsaw puzzle to give us that whole photograph, that kind of 3D wraparound photo of the animal and how it may perform. So I've opened this other race card. We can see here, interestingly, both those two horses are still at the top. One Master and Breathtaking Look, they're still both at the top. They've swapped positions. One Master was at the top before. Breathtaking Look is now at the top. But the difference between them is very, very small. And then we've got Wasmia next. But I'm just going to keep those two because Wasmia jumped right up there. Okay, next thing I'm going to look at is speed. This is a 7 furlong race. So let's look at the average competitive speed. Here it is. Now, we cannot ignore the average competitive speed for some of these horses. One Master is quite low. Breathtaking Look, not too bad, but Under the Stars and Valeria Messalina are the best there. So I'm going to highlight them as well. But now I'm going to come over to some more speed rating, speed factors. First of all, this one here, SHOR, speed horse, that stands for pro, means projected. So this is the projected speed figure. So actually the projected speed figure, One Master, Breathtaking Look are the best. and actually Under the Stars and Valeria Messalina are right at the bottom. Okay, and that's fine. That makes sense. The reason the speed class was higher, speed class takes a bit more time to build. So that's fine. And also this horse had a win last time out. So maybe that speed figure last time out was very good. Then I'm going to have a look at the average speed of these horses in the last 90 days. And again, One Master, breathtaking look, sitting there at the top. Now I'm going to come over to this one. This is a rating that I've never really talked about much before, but it can be very powerful because what this rating does is it tells us the average speed rating from the best runners that these horses have raced against in the last 90 days. So it tells us the class of race or the speed of race that these horses have been used to running in the last 90 days. So what has their competition been like in the last 90 days? And we can see again, One Master, breathtaking look at the top. The horses they've been racing against in the last 90 days have been the fastest horses compared to the horses that the other runners have been racing against over the last 90 days. I mean, Wasmir, Invitational are pretty close, and then there's a bit of a drop down to Agincourt. But again, Under the Stars, Valeria Messalina looking pretty low. So I'm going to take them out again of our contention. Keep going, and we come to the average speed for these horses over the ground conditions. And yet again, we see One Master, breathtaking look. And you get this. When there are a couple of horses that are good speed horses, you're going to find, generally speaking, they're probably going to be top or near top for most speed information in the race. Looking at average speed over the distance, they drop down a bit. They're kind of fourth and fifth, but they're not hugely behind. Invitational's at the top here with 149 average speed figure over the distance. And then we've got 147, 146, 144. So they're in the middle, but it's not a vast drop. And we might be able to determine how that's going to play out with pace. But I'm going to highlight for the moment Invitational, Agincourt, because they were also... well, actually, Invitational was bad over the ground. So Agincourt was also pretty good over the last 90 days and was pretty good over the ground. Now I'm going to the 5278. We've already talked about that rating today. And notice here, One Master, breathtaking look are ranked number 1, number 3 there. And Altica is number 2. So I'm just going to remember Altica in my head, see what happens. Agincourt drop down here. Dace's last good race. Okay, now this is very interesting. Dace's last good race. They've all had good races recently. Dace's last one. Right. So let's look at that. Agincourt hasn't won for 308 days. Breathtaking look hasn't won for 322 days. One Master hasn't won for 700 days. That's nearly 2 years since One Master won a race. That's a long time. That's going to go into how we maybe consider our bet. Altica, on the other hand, up here, won a race 47 days ago, as has Valeria Messalina and Under the Stars. So that's quite interesting. Think about that for a minute, and that's quite interesting. Now, before I get this question, I'm just going to clarify. You're going to see Wasmir here. We have not got any day since last good race or day since last one, but we can see in this horse's recent form, there are 3 wins. Why is that? There's 3 wins and a place. So why we got no good races, no one races? That's because these races took place internationally. Currently, we only get UK and Irish data. So we cannot calculate against races that took place internationally in other countries. That's why we can't see that. But you can see here that Wasmir has obviously had some good races. In situations like that, we want to use the market to help guide us. Currently, this horse is odds of 20 to 1 in the market. So I'm not particularly worried about it. But that's why that happens there. Okay. Now I'm going to come over because this is throwing a little bit of a spanner in the works. This winning issue. So let me just put those horses back, spread out based by 5278. I'm going to come over to the PFP scores here. And again, if you're new with us today, the PFP is a collateral score rating. It starts at 1500 and we add or subtract points based on how a horse has performed. We got 4 ratings here, which shows us how many points were added to that PFP score or subtracted from that PFP score for each horse across the last 4 races. I like to see it gradually increase. So we can see here One Master not so good over the last 2 because it dropped a bit, but last 3, last 4 doing well. Breathtaking Look. This looks positive, but it's not quite as positive as it looks, because we had 3.6 in the last one and it dropped down in the last 2 races. And then it increased a bit if we take all 3 races into account, and then it dropped a bit if we take all 4 races into account. So that tells us that this horse has been doing well, not so well, doing well, not so well, doing well, not so well. A little bit of a concern here. Not as much concern as we have over Agincourt, that just seems to be losing points going on. So we're going to take that horse out again. So we're back to One Master and Breathtaking Look. But look at Altica. I'm going to drop this horse in again, because look at this. Added points, increased points, steady, fluid. That's what we want to see. Don't forget, this is a long race. Speed is not everything. There is some stamina coming into play here. So while it may not be the fastest horse, it looks like Altica could definitely be a threat in this race. I'm going to have a quick look at the pace. Expected or predicted this pace is going to be fast. When we get a fast pace, if there are multiple horses that like to lead, that's wonderful, because those horses burn each other out. They have a private race within the race, and they all charge off and they burn each other out, and none of them finish in a position. However, if there is one horse that's particularly stronger at leading than the others, it is possible for that horse to take a march on the others. The others then burn out, fighting each other to try and catch up, and that horse goes on to win. Without that, pretty much we're going to see early pressers or mid-pack horses coming in to win. So I'm going to cover the pace over here. Now what we've got here is we've got the total pace score here in this column that I'm looking at here. And on the right side, we've got their preferred running style. So we can see Agincourt is likely to be at the front with Breathtaking Look kind of behind. Both of those like to be early pressers. So those 2 horses are likely to lead. Not one of them looks particularly strong as a leader. So there's a chance that those 2 might burn each other out. Then we come down to the mid-pack horses. One Master, Valeria Messalina Invitational, and Altica is probably not going to be too far behind. The closing horses like to be Wasmia, where we've got it's looking like that total pace is going to put that horse at the back. So again, this is strong for Altica. Bit of a concern for Breathtaking Look. One Master, that could be fine. So that's how the pace is looking. Pardon me. Okay, so for me in this race, I like Altica. I think Altika's going to be a strong one. One Master, Breathtaking Look, definitely have contention, but Altica for me looks to be the horse in this race. Shall we, I'm going to pass this over to you now. Shall we spend a couple of minutes looking into the horse history? I'm aware of the time today. I'm trying to make sure that I stick within that 90 minutes if possible, but would you like me to have a very quick look into these 3 horses' history, or a quick look at the speed graphs just to compare that? Okay, I'm going to jump quickly over to the chat to see what you think there. Am I going a bit fast? There's a few people say I'm going fast. I am going fast. I do talk fast. I do appreciate that. I will try my best to slow down a little bit. Okay. Right. Okay. So that's great. So this is just to clarify that, because I just saw Scott's message. You're right. I don't think Altika's going to lead either. I think Agincourt, Breathtaking Look are probably going to be the ones up at the front. I think One Master, Valeria, Invitational, Altica are going to be kind of mid-pack. And I think Altika's going to like being mid-pack. So that's what I think. So I'm going to jump over to the market now, and let's see how we're going to bet in this race. This is the 145 at Goodwood. If you've just joined us, I've seen a lot more people have joined us. So at the moment, One Master is the market favorite at 2.92. Wow. I mean, that seems to me, I don't know about you guys, but that seems to me to be pretty short for that horse. 2.92. Wow. Okay. Maybe we should have a little bit of a closer look at One Master just to see. Okay, let's spend 60 seconds jumping back over here. Let's have a 60-second look at One Master. Okay, just because those odds seem very short, and when we see something that doesn't match at all, it's always a good idea to have a close look. So I'm going to open One Master's history. Let's have a look here very, very quickly. This is a 7-furlong race on good ground, class 1, with around 30 grand prize money. Okay, so we can see this horse has been in some very, very high value races up here. And in fact, this is probably the lowest class race it's been in since the 25th of May last year. They're all similar distances, 6 furlong, 1 mile. So there's a furlong either side, similar distances. It's not won any of those races. It has competed, however, in most of them. Even this one where it came 6th, it was finishing 3.5 lengths behind. However, notice You see, it's done well on heavy ground. It's also done well on good to firm ground. But on heavy ground, it was carrying a lot less weight. Today, One Master's carrying 9 stone 3. So scanning down here, we can see the horse won Tipperary at a similar ground 7 furlongs, and it was yielding by half a length. But that's back in 2018. And then it started getting pushed into these higher class races where it's definitely competitive. This is going to be why that horse is short odds. It's been racing in much higher races. It's been quality races. It's been competitive. It seems to not have a preference. It seems to be comfortable on good ground, soft ground, either way. Doesn't look to be a winner particularly. So that would be my concern. And I still think I can see why the odds are that low, but for me, they are still going to be too low. So just coming back over here. So when we see something like that, something that doesn't seem right in the market, it's worth spending 60 seconds just checking it. Make sure we not miss something glaringly obvious. So for me, I understand why the odds are that low now. Altica, though, it works for me because that pushes Altica's odds up to 8.4. Happy days. So odds of 8.4. In the plains market, we're getting 2.7 on Altica. And just to show you how that would work on a 80-20 bet, that would make us a £33 profit if Altica was to come in the top 3. If we look at the 4-place market, still getting 2.08. So that would make us around a £21 bet if it comes in a £20 profit if it was to come in the top 4. So for me, this is definitely going to be an 80-20 bet. I'm definitely going to be on Altica. The question is, do I do 80-20 in the 4-place or 80-20 in the 3-place market? I think breathtaking look, One Master are the threats. I'm quite confident in Altica, but a Valeria Messalina Invitational, we mustn't forget them. There is possibility there. So I think for me, I'm going to use the 80-20 bet. I'm going to go for the 4-place market. So I'm going to use that 80% as the cover. So that's fine. I'm happy to take an 80% return if Altica comes in the top 4. And if Altica wins, then it actually doesn't matter because I'm getting those great odds anyway of 8.2 because One Master is, as far as I'm concerned, way, way too short. So if Altica wins, we're going to walk away, or I'm going to walk away with around £55 profit to a £25 bet. So around about a 200% profit. And if it places, I'm still going to be making about an 80-90% profit as long as it comes in that top 4. So I've used that place bet as more as a saver because I think while I think Altica is the strongest horse, there are definitely there's more than 2 horses that could seriously contend in this race. So I want to cover a little bit more of the field there. Okay, superb. So that was the 145. We're going to move over to the 215 now. And welcome. I can see there's another 10-15 people who've just joined. If you've just joined, welcome to the Race Advisors Goodwood Day Analysis. We've just finished the 145 at Goodwood. I've gone on Altica with an 80-20 each bet in the 4-place market. If you're new to the Race Advisor, my name is Michael Wilding, and we're doing this with the Race Advisor at www.raceadvisor.co.uk. If you've not created your account yet, please head over there. Come and join our members community. It's a wonderful community. I personally think it's one of the best horse racing communities online. We are your horse racing family. So you love horse racing, we love horse racing, we talk about horse racing, and also we love making a success from horse racing and specifically from betting on horse racing. That's the love. How do we make it successful? How can we make everybody who loves horse racing successful at horse racing? That is my goal. That is the Race Advisor's goal. How do we do that? And that's what we're looking at today. So we're going to now jump into the 215 race. So let me just share that. Before we get into that, I'm just going to come back to the chat as well. There's been so much chat going on. It's wonderful to see that. If you're on YouTube, please drop a comment in the chat box over here on your right hand side. Say hi, get involved in the conversation. If you're on Facebook, use the Facebook comments. That is effectively Facebook's chat. Drop a comment in, say hi to everybody, give us your selections, let us know your thoughts, let us know which horses you think are the strongest in the race today at Goodwood. So just coming back here through to some of the messages that have gone through, so I don't miss them out. So coming down here, Chris has asked me to slow down a bit. I will try my best to slow down a bit. I do appreciate in these live sessions, I go very, very fast. One of the reasons for that is we've got so much to fit in such a short space of time. If you miss anything, if you've got a question on anything, please drop it back into that chat. Let me know. I'll come back to it. I'll look at it again. And that's absolutely no problem. But I'm just aware that we are very, very short on time to try and get through the analysis of all. We've got 8 races today in just 90 minutes. Philippe, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you here again. Will has joined us over on Facebook as well. Thank you very much. Coming through here, breathtaking view. Scott thinks breathtaking view might get an easy lead and might slip the field in that 145. My opinion is that breathtaking view may well get the lead, but I think he may tie it because I have a feeling that there'll be another runner up there with him. But it could go Scott's way as well. John, race 1, Omen. Where am I? Omen Bet. Oh, sorry, that's in the race 1 Australia handicap. Thank you for that, John. Coming down here. Okay. Breathtaking was very fast at Doncaster from Scott over on Facebook. Thank you. David is saying proof that the figures work. John and I both backed the same winners at Galway yesterday. Superb. Absolutely brilliant to hear that. Thank you for sharing that, David. Much appreciated. And John's followed that up as well, saying that was why I was confident because you would make the same mistakes as me. And John is like me. John works with data, doesn't really know horses. So I've got to know horses over the last kind of decade and a half. But still, as I was saying earlier, if you give me a horse name, please do also give me a race time because I know numbers. I try to look at a horse from a perspective of how it's going to perform rather than its personal, well, let's say it's private history. Scott, we covered Scott saying Altica won't lead. I agree with you. Okay, Graham. Yes to a brief history review. We did that. We had a quick look we had a very quick look there at One Master to see why One Master was so short in the market. Okay, we're going to move on to the 215 now. Robin's already said he's going to lay Calusi in the 215. Aaron, over on YouTube, great to see that you're on Altica with us. Right, let's move on to the 215. Please do keep leaving the messages in the chat. It's wonderful. Don't forget, you can chat to everybody else who is here on this live in that chat as well. It doesn't have to just be a question, doesn't have to just be to me. Please do feel free to chat like David and John. We're just having a conversation about how to use the speed graphs in there. Please do feel free to chat in there. It doesn't just have to be questions from me. This is a live event. This is you're with your horse racing family now. No holds barred. Get the questions in, have a chat with each other, see who we're going to bet on. Let's find some more contenders. Okay, the 215 race. We got 5 entries in this race. It's a 1 mile race, obviously good ground class 1, just over 28 grand prize money. This is nice. This is short. Now, the first thing we noticed in the Betfair was we've got an odds-on favourite. So if we have an odds-on favourite, one of the first questions I like to ask is, can we choose a different horse? So when we have an odds-on favourite, we have 2 options. Are we looking to buy money? I.e., do we think this horse is so much better than the rest of the field, we can literally just buy money on it? And one of the common things with buying money, that phrase, is people do that on the place market. If you go to the place market for an odds-on horse, and you're getting kind of like 1.1 in the place market, very, very short odds. Effectively, we call that buying money because you're getting a 10% return for every pound you spend. But you only want to do that if you are supremely confident that that horse is the strongest in the field. And if you're going to buy money, it's better to do it in the place market than in the win market. So let's have a quick look at our probabilities. And the first thing that I noticed, because this often happens in these festivals, we've seen this every day in the festival because the fields are so competitive. Our probabilities usually disagree with the market. And that doesn't make our probabilities right. That doesn't make the market right. It just says there's more to the story than what the odds are telling us. So I've opened the probability here. We've actually put my Oberon and Tilsit near the top. And Calusi, this one down here, that odds-on favorite currently, we've put kind of down at 15%. Now, the chances are if the market's got an odds-on, our 15% is far too low. That happens, that's fine. That's why we have the PR odds column merging with the market to tell us what it's likely to be. So let's take that overlay off and sort by the PR odds. And you'll see Calusi is still coming in as the second favorite to us. So massively, massively undervalued, potentially based on that. And then Tilsit's coming in next. So that's what we're seeing there. Let's run a Monte Carlo simulation. I'm running this on my overview race card. So there's more factors in here. There's form, there's speed. I will actually run it on the standard race card as well. And the reason that I'm going to run it on standard race card as well is because this overview race card has a lot of similar factors. Like there's a number of PFP-based factors. There's a number of speed-based factors. So when we run this simulation, if we've got a lot of factors or a lot of ratings that are based off the same one, so you'll notice we've got variations of PFP ratings. We've got variations of speed ratings. And if we've got a number of ratings based off the same rating, then we're effectively double counting. So I will go back and run that in the standard race card where we haven't got that. If you want to create a custom race card purely for the Monte Carlo simulator, try and make sure that every factor you have got is independent, is an independent rating. So it's not sort of like PFP and then PFP class and and then PFP points added. Try and make it, just choose one, the one that you like the best, and then do a speed one, and then do a good races one, and then do maybe finish position in last race one, or the average length. Here is a factor that not many people use that is in the ratings. Average winning lengths. I'll dig out what it's actually called for you right now. Bear with me 1 second. This is a factor that's very, very powerful. It tells us a little bit of information. Winning, hang on, lengths. Just looking for it here. Finish lengths behind in the last race. Okay, finish lengths behind in the last race. That's a very, very powerful factor. It just tells us, combined with days since last good race, it tells us how that horse kind of has been performing, and also if you combine that with the number of furlongs a horse has run over the last, say, 14 days or 30 days, you start to get this picture of how far the horse has run, how much exercise it has had. So if this horse is a sprint horse and it's run a huge amount of furlongs, you know it's probably going to be tired. So these two pieces of information coming in there, and one other rating I'm going to tell you is called RSC, number of races since the horse changed trainer. This is really powerful as well. When a horse changes trainer, sometimes you want to look at that horse if it's 0. If the horse hasn't yet had a race with that trainer, that can be, in certain situations, a very, very strong bet to get in on. In other situations, you possibly want to have waited a little bit of time. Anyway, coming back to the race, 2:15 race. We ran that simulation. Let me open it back up, and let's see who's put first. So it's put Calusi at the top. Okay. And then Tilsit next, and then my Oberon third. Now that's interesting because we had my Oberon, Calusi, and then Tilsit. But let's come back over to the standard race card and see what that one is telling us. And we're going to do the simulation again here. And while that simulation is running, I'm going to quickly jump over to the chat, see who you like in this race. Do you think Calusi at odds of 1.71 is a good bet? Okay, let's see. Right, just coming through here. Robin, you said, of course, you said at the beginning that you were going to lay Calusi at those odds. Absolutely. That is the other option. That's a very good point. When you've got a very short horse, you don't have to back other horses. You can lay that short horse. You Loco, a quick question. I'm just going to drop this up on the screen. Do you avoid 14 plus and 5 or less horse races? No, I don't. Because as far as I'm concerned, there is no logical reason to avoid these races. 14 plus races means there's more runners. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be more competitive. A lot of those runners could just be trying to get a run in. 5 or less horse races means it should be pretty easy to find the strongest ones. So I would never remove them just because of the number of runners. If I'm trying to create a methodology and I want to narrow the field, then yes, that's a possibility, because we might want to create a methodology for 14 plus runners, and we might want to create a methodology for 5 or less runners, and then we might want to create a method for 6 to 13 runners. So that is a way of doing it. But if we're just handicapping races like we're doing here, where we're just looking at the information, then no, I wouldn't do that, because this is the power of looking at races like this over a systematic process, is we can take into account there are 14 plus runners, and we can take into account there are less than 5 runners. And actually, what we're doing here is we're not finding the horse that's going to win the race. That's not what we're doing. And that's the mistake a lot of bettors make. Let's find the horse that's going to win the race. Well, that is generally impossible to do with any regularity. That's not what we're doing. What we're trying to do is we're trying to understand how the horses are going to run the race. And by understanding that, we're going to know who the strongest horses in that race is. And when we know who the strongest horses in the race are, and we understand how the race is going to be run, we can look at the odds. And then the odds tell us what the bookies think, or what the market thinks if we're on Betfair. And based on those odds, we can then compare it to our opinion and go, okay, well, we think this, the market thinks this, so the truth is probably going to be in the middle. Is it worth the bet or not? How do we then structure the bet? And that's when we start doing that, when we stop trying to find the winner, when we start trying to just understand how the race is going to be run and who's going to be strongest, that's when we move. That's when we make this massive leap forwards towards that long-term profit, because we're changing our mind, we're changing our outlook, and that one goal, that one focus will change everything. So no, the answer to the question there is no, I wouldn't avoid them, and that's the reason why. Gary in the previous race likes Valera Messalina because the trainer is flying. Race free, Graham over on YouTube is going no bet in this race. Robin is saying that Tilsit looks a value in the speed graphs. Aaron likes Tilsit. He's a tracker horse, but he's not confident enough. Philippe's saying no bets at Goodwood are any good. I mean, there is some truth in that in these super competitive races. Thomas over on YouTube, I don't back all out. I just pick the horse to back online. Scott, enjoy the beach. Where are you, Scott? The beach would be wonderful. Take us on your mobile phone and let us know where you are. Okay. So that simulation is finished over here. I'm just going to exit it so I can sort by horses, and then we're going to decide what to bet on in this race. Okay, once again, Calusi's at the top, then My Oberon, and then Tilsit's down here at the bottom. So My Oberon's still there. I'm still confident that Calusi hasn't got value, and because it's just been mentioned, I'm going to jump over to the speed graphs and have a very quick look at the speed graphs for this race as well. So here are the speed graphs for this race. There's not that much on them. Let's make it full screen so we can see it better. Okay, so this horse here with this huge drop-off is Repartee. Otherwise, it was pretty consistent. Down here, we've got a slight improver. This is My Oberon, who seems to be improving. This horse here, Mystery Power, looking good. This is Calusi. Had a good race here, But when we start actually looking at raw speed figures that take account of various factors, doesn't look so much better than the others here, does it? Tilsit here, looking good as well. But that was also, this best race was on flat all weather, standard to slow. And this race here was also on flat all weather. So Tilsit's also, he's coming off the all weather here. Whereas Calusi was flat turf, soft at Ascot. And then this best race here was flat all weather. And then coming over here, this was flat all weather as well. So this is the only turf race that we've got. Coming down here to My Oberon. Flat turf, good ground at York. And here, flat turf, good ground at Newmarket. So I still quite like the look of My Oberon. If I just put flat turf races in here, again, it changes. Calusi up here with that excellent score. Then we've got Repartee, who looks good outside of the last race where it dropped off a cliff. My Oberon, not looking quite so strong. And then Mystery Power here. So that gives me a little bit of caution on my Oberon. I still think Calusi is too short. Mystery Power, Repartee. I'm going to have to come back now over here. So I'm going to move Repartee out based purely on the odds of nearly being 30 from there, because there's not much, and that last race was poor. That leaves Calusi, my Oberon, Mystery Power, Tilsit. And Tilsit on that speed graph, for me, looks strong, but the issue is all weather. Can it convert that over here onto good ground? So for me, I still think this is going to be a race for my Oberon. I'm going to stick with that. And that's still the strongest horse by our PR odds raw probability. So let's jump over into the market, see what we can here to bet on. So 215. Let's see what the current odds are now. Wow, Calusi, while we've been talking, Calusi's dropped to 1.65, which is great because that's pushed my Oberon out. Now, we've got some different markets here. We've got the place market, and obviously this is going to be 2 to place. My Oberon is 1.7. That will still work with an 80-20 bet. We can see here, I'd still make, on a £25 bet, we'd still make £13 profit if my Oberon came in the top 2, minus the £5 on the win. So we'd still be walking away with around about an £8 profit here, which is going to be about a 35% return. We can bet on this race without the favourite, but my Oberon's then 1.74. So just to show what the difference that would be, we place £25, we're going to make 18. Well, if we place £20 in the 2-place market, so come back here, because effectively this is Oberon to be in first or second, effectively. So it's effectively like betting in the 2-place market at 1.74. But my Oberon here is currently 1.7. So actually betting the 80-20 portion of our stake in without the favorite market is going to be better than betting in the 2-place market, because it's essentially the same market, but the odds are a little bit better. So let's take those better odds, because without the favorite, that means that if my Oberon wins the race, or my Oberon comes second to Calusi, so it comes second to Calusi, that being the difference, then we're getting the same odds. Obviously, in the 2-place market, the odds are slightly lower because the 2-place market, we just need Oberon to come in the top 2. It doesn't matter who wins. So if Tilsit went on to win that race, it's not going to be an issue. And then in the win market, we have 4.1. There's also how far Calusi, and we got up to and including 2 lengths. There's basically no money matched in this market yet. It's £20. So the market hasn't formed. But this could be an interesting one here, Calusi not to win. And now the other alternative, which is a good alternative, is to just lay Calusi. And if we laid Calusi here for a £25, we want a £25 liability. So that's going to be something like, I think, 35, nearly 36. So we can see here, if I lay it for £37, the liability is £25.16. And we're going to make £37 on any of the other runners. So for me, do we go 80-20 or do I just lay Calusi? Well, I'm not saying that Calusi has no chance. So for me, the lay, if I was looking purely for value, the lay of Calusi is great because I think the odds are way, way too low on this horse. But I think Calusi still has a good chance of winning this race. So for me, I'm not going to lay. And when we do festivals, I'm not looking for that value. I'm looking for the win. So I'm going to go on Oberon. And then it's the decision of whether to go through on the without favorite market or the place market. And Tilsit, I see Tilsit is a threat. So actually, I am going to go on the place market. I'm going to do my Oberon here in the place market with an 80-20 bet. I'm going to leave that there to get matched in a minute, but I'll just change it over to take SP in case I miss it while we're going through the other races. And then I'm going to come over here and place the rest of the stake on my Oberon to make that a £25 bet. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next race, which is the 245 at Goodwood. John's saying that he wouldn't go on Tilsit because it's only raced on all weather, not flat turf. Bruce is going for a no bet in this race. A very good idea. Dave is saying my Oberon because it's beautifully bred. Michael Webster over on Facebook, you're going on the play spot. Very, very sensible. To be honest, I mean, this is the issue with these festivals. There is so much competition. It's very, very hard to follow those horses. I've just realized I've not been noting down our place pot. Thank you for reminding me, Michael. So we've got my Oberon there in the 215. And going back to the previous race at Goodwood. So if you've just joined us, we're going to be going for a place spot today as well. And I'm going to give you those horses that we're going to put in it at the end. So I'm just putting them in here. Or we're going for a place accumulator anyway. Okay, so back here over to the 245. Tilsit is risky, but it could be anything. Absolutely. It's a very, very tough race. Okay, welcome. I can see a few people have just joined in. If you just joined in, welcome. Thank you for joining. Please do say hi in the chat. Hit the thumbs up, hit the share button, and let people know that you're enjoying this. We're now on the 245 race. Okay, so this is the race before the big one. Good ground. It's the mile handicap. Obviously, unsurprisingly, it's over a mile. As you can see, a lot of entries here, 15. So we're going to sort by the odds, and we're going to come down here. And this time, we've got a lot that we can remove. I'm going to remove any horse that has odds over 29 to 1. And I do that just by clicking on this little X next to each of them. We can see that then removes those horses. I've got Afark here as an eye catcher. I'm just going to take that off. That was me running a test the other day. So you can see that because the eye is green. It's now gone black. And we're going to take it off. Okay. Oh, the hover over. I'm not sure what's happened with my hover there. Hang on. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to take that runner out. I'm going to take Al Mufti out as well. And now I'm actually going to take out a couple of other runners because with bless him here, hasn't had a good race for 329 days. That's a long time. I'm going to take that horse out. And Willie John here hasn't had a good race for 434 days. So I'm just going to take that runner out. And now this feels a bit better. 7 horses. That looks more comfortable for us and certainly easier to get our teeth into. This time we're going to start by doing the simulation, the Monte Carlo simulation first. And then I'm going to come over while that's running to the chat to see who you like in the 245 Unibet Golden Mile handicap race. Okay. Michael's sticking to small stakes. Very sensible, Michael. Me too. We're just having fun stakes in this race. And I use, as you may know, I use, if you don't know, I use a separate bankroll for festival bettings. I figure out how much I want to bet in the event entirely over the entire festival. I divide that by the number of days at the festival, and that's the amount, that's my bankroll for each day of the festival. And then each day I come in and divide that bankroll by the number of races, and that gives me the amount I'm going to stake in each race, and nothing goes back in. At that point, that's the maximum amount I stake in each race. I take out any winnings, any returns, any profits. It goes in like the separate pocket, goes in the other pocket. And at the end of the festival, we either walk away with a little bit or we walk away with a little loss. One of the two, but we've had a good time. We've been able to bet in every single race, and we've managed our risk totally. So that's how we do it. And generally, you should look at festival betting as entertainment. So we should look at festival betting as purely entertainment, something to get our teeth stuck into. We wouldn't normally bet on every single race at a course, at a meeting, every day of a week, because that's going to be very high volume. There's going to be races simply don't know, as we had yesterday. We just don't know. But because we want to watch it, because it's a big event, we enjoy it. That's the entertainment part. Okay, so in this race, Graham is going on Sir Busker. William over on Facebook got 4 yesterday. Congratulations, William. Big shout out to you, William, over on Facebook, getting 4 winners yesterday. Well done. John over on Facebook is going for Montatham in this race. Darren's on Card Sharp. Michael, thank you very much. I'm pleased to see that you're enjoying it. Robin's on Urban Icon as an 80-20 in this one. William's on Montatham, and Bob over on YouTube is on Vale of Kent. So there's a lot of difference of opinions in this race. So let me add mine into the mix. Okay, that simulation's finished. Let me add my opinion into the mix. Right, okay. So that simulation is finished. Montatham, a number of you who like this horse, is there at the top. And there's a bit of a gap there till Sir Busker, and then Prompting and Urban Icon are kind of all very, very close. So Montatham, and then Sir Busker, Prompting, Urban Icon. So I'm going to come out of that simulation. I'm just going to put Montatham here, Sir Busker, Urban Icon, and Prompting. So those were those four. Next, we're going to look at the probabilities. So sort here. Okay, Sir Busker and Montatham are in the top four there. Urban Icon and Prompting not. So I'm going to take those off for the moment. But I'm now going to sort as well by our PR odds, which is the merge with the market. And generally on these events, as you've been seeing, when I'm using PR odds, I like to get this overlay. And this information that we're seeing here is how this PR odds tissue line is created. But in these big events, because it's so super competitive, they're almost always going to be differing. But I like to get the quick overview to see where it's at. But primarily, I like to use just the PR odds column because that's merged with the live markets, and it's going to give me more of an accurate opinion. And that puts Montatham at the top and then Sir Busker, which is exactly the same as we got on the Monte Carlo simulation. To make that a little bit stronger, Montatham is also in the top four, as we can see here, for 5278. Urban Icon is also in that top four, as is the Vale of Kent. This is a 1 mile race. Coming along, we'll see Montatham again at the top here, number one for speed figure adjusted for the last race. Best ever speed figure. Sorting here. The best ever speed figure is the best speed rating. So this is SHORBES. That stands for the horse's speed figure, best ever rating on today's race type. And Vale of Kent is at the top there, followed by Car Sharp, and then followed by Montatham. And there's a bit of a gap between these two. But if we look at the last six figures, there's not much showing any promise there for those top ones. But we just bear that in mind. Sir Busker is further down here. 160, which is a little bit of a concern, but is a course distance winner. So going to leave that horse in for the moment. Now coming along for good race in the last 10, Montatham is at the top. Cliffs of Capri jumps in. So you'll notice that Cliffs of Capri, we've got 7, 9, 1, 2, 4, 2. So good races in the last 10. We're looking at the horses who have done well. And that could be anything from 1.5 to kind of 3.5 lengths behind the winner, depending on the race conditions. The most common, the average is about 2.5 lengths. So win history here. Let me go down. Sorry, that's from high to low. So you can see that. So that puts Prompting at the top again slightly. But Montatham is still there. Sir Busker is there. Possibly another bit of a threat from Prompting. So bring that back in. And then finally, the last two ratings on the standard race card, the PFP. We can see there's a huge spread here in the PFP. And when I see a big spread like that, I would want to dig. If I'm going to use that rating, I'd want to dig into it a bit more. So for the moment, I'm going to leave that rating. I'm not going to dig into it a bit more because what I'm going to do is going to look at the pace, because this pace is predicted to be true. And while mid-pack and closers do win these types of races, generally they need a bit of a faster pace that's going to set them up for that closing run. And you can get this information. You don't need to remember this off the top of your head, because when you come into your Race Advisor software, when you come to your RA Pro software, you'll see this predicted pace race here, just under the race name. And it tells you exactly this information. So you don't need to remember what type of horses win, what type of pace races. But leaders and early pressers are the ones that are most likely to win a true race. And a good early presser, if it gets off to a decent start, is often better than the leader. So when we got that information, we can come over to the pace scores. And you see, I've just clicked this horse and it's overlaid the pace scores. Whenever we overlay extra information on our race card, we get an orange header to make it clear. And I'm going to sort by total pace. And it looks here, Card Sharp and Vale of Kent are likely to lead this race. And then Montatham's going to be an early presser, just sitting behind them, with Urban Icon, Cliffs of Capri, Prompting, Sir Busker looking to be closers in this race, which is fine. The preference tells us that suits those two horses, but also an early presser suits Montatham as well. So Montatham, these horses look to be in the right position for these races. So I'm actually going to jump into these horses' history a little bit to make that final decision. So coming over to this tab here, I'm opening up Montatham's history first. And we've got a decent amount of history. What we can also do is we can come over to the race card history, and this shows us the ratings for that race card that we've selected, which is currently standard. I can select any of my race cards and see that horse's past ratings in every single race it's been in. So I can see exactly what it would have scored in all of these races. And this is useful. For example, look at this PFP score. 1500 is what every horse starts with. And I can see it's just been steadily improving all the time. Again, speed here, 5278, 111. Then it's struggled a little bit up here with that score. But good races in the last 10. Again, look, this is continuously increasing. It's having a good race. That means it's having a good race. Every race is a good race. And when you get more ratings, like if I was to open my overview card, for example, with more ratings, we can start building up bigger pictures of these horses. So, for example, projected speed figure is just steadily, we go up and down a bit, but generally it's just going up, getting faster, getting better. So this is always the sign of a good horse. Anyway, coming back to the form, and this is just the standard information that you're going to get on any race card. So coming back to the form, and I do that sometimes just to simplify it a bit. So we already know this horse is going to look strong. Coming back, 1 mile race. Remember the prize money for this race. This is a class 2 race with just over 31,000 in prize money. So this Ascot race is the most similar it's been in, carrying 8.12. Today it's carrying 9.5. It was beaten, but only by 1.25 lengths. So wasn't a match for the winner. The class was slightly higher than today, but it still put in a strong race. The next race, it dropped right down in class to a 19 grand race. And this is why I use prize money. This is a great example of why I use prize money to determine class of race. This is why I use the race advisors' class ratings to determine the class of a horse. Because look, these 2 races here, the race on the 17th of June was a class 2 race. The race on the 5th of July was a class 2 race. One was worth nearly 50 grand and one was worth only 20 grand. That's a massive disparity. And the horses in them are going to be totally different. They cannot be classed as the same type of runners. So we can see here, it only just held on. So Montatham only just held on here. Didn't match, contended in that higher class race, but couldn't get to the winner. Then we dropped down to the lower class races, good conditions, easily won that one. Didn't do so well on the all-weather. So coming back down to flat, again, contended, but the winner was clear, and it was chasing that winner there. So generally what we're seeing here is this horse can contend. This horse isn't going to have an issue with the conditions. Possibly the class may be pushing a little bit depending on the other runners. So let's have a look at the other runners. So the other horse that we like the look of, let me just come back here to double check, was Prompting and Sabuska. So let's start with Sabuska, because Prompting only came in at the end. So here's Sabuska. Okay, and Sabuska, we've got a lot of ratings here, a lot of races here. And again, we can see just scrolling down here, we've got very competitive, only 3/4 of a length behind the winner, one by 3/4 of a length, one by just under 1/4 of a length. All similar conditions, except for this one here was standard to slow on all weather. These 2 recent races were similar conditions. We had a bad race here on the all weather, but I'm not really interested in that. I'm coming down to the flat. Beaten, 1.5 lengths, similar conditions again. And both of these recent races were similar class 2, similar prize money. So this horse is looking nice and strong. This horse likes to win and is definitely a threat for Montatham. Coming into Prompting, lower class straight away. So we've got that jumping class and quite a big jumping class. But otherwise, the horse is looking strong. The question is going to be, can it make this jump? Also notice its wins have all come on 7 furlongs. Today is a mile. It's contended under a mile, not yet won. So that gives me a little bit of a concern over Prompting. And I think that was the last. Urban Icon kept popping up as well. So Urban Icon, having a quick glance down here. So most recently at Ascot, similar race, beaten massively, and beaten, we can see here, beaten by Mohatha as well. So in that race there, had absolutely no extra in the final yards. Coming down here, kept on, but had no extra in the final. Coming down here, held on, but that was a shorter race. Won that one comfortably. Coming here, looks like the Urban Icon has an issue finishing. So just doesn't find that extra at the end. So coming back over to the race card, where does that leave me? That leaves me with Montatham and Sir Busker. I actually quite like Sir Busker, possibly over Montatham. So let's jump to the market, see what the market is doing. Montatham's definitely a threat. Those are the two horses that I prefer. So we're in the market. Let's come down here to the 245 race. Also, both of these could be good for the place pot. We could actually drop, or the place accumulators, we could drop 2 in here potentially as well. So at the moment, Montatham is second favourite at 5.7, coming down to Sir Busker at odds of 10. There's quite a big difference between those two, and I quite like Sir Busker. I think Montatham's possibly a little bit short here, so we could Dutch them. That's one way of doing it. We could place bet both of them, and again, Montatham actually at odds of 2.6 is pretty good. Sir Busker's place odds not quite so good. We could do it in the 4-place market as well. Coming up here, we can see Montatham's 2 in the 4-place market. Sir Busker's 2.16. So for me, I think actually I'm just going to stick with Sir Busker in this race, but I'm going to go with it for 2 places because I think Montatham's a possibility, Prompting's a possibility. Urban Icon, I think, could be in there as well. And there's obviously a few other threats that the market thinks are there. So, hold on, let me just come back to the 3-place market for a second and check. Oh, it's close. No, for me, the balance is here between the risk, because I know this is super competitive. I know any horse could do it. I like Sir Busker. I think Sir Busker's a threat, but only a threat. It's a contender. There's a lot of horses, and actually, potentially, horses like Card Shark could come out of nowhere as well. Card Shark, Fist of Capri, these horses potentially, I mean, none of them were hugely worse performing when we were looking at those race cars. It wasn't like, wow, these horses are really bad. So they're kind of in the mix too. So, and for that reason, I am going to go on the 80-20 bet, Sir Busker. I'm going to go for this horse in the 4-place market. I'm going to go £20. So you can see I'm still going to make 100% return if this horse comes in the top 4 only, which is, you know, not bad going really. So 100% return is not bad going. So I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to come over to the win market, and I'm going to see who you are betting on now. Have you made a bet in this race? I'm going to put the remainder of the 20% of that stake there on Sir Busker there, and I'm going to add 2 horses here to our place accumulator. Hang on. Right. Okay. Monta and Sir Busker, and I'll go through the place accumulator horses at the very end, the ones that we've marked down as well, that we like the look of going on. Right, okay. Let's jump back to the race cards. Let's jump over to the chat. Let's see who you got here. Clifford Capri, Vale of Kent. Wonderful. Aaron, what you your kids are in the paddling pool. That is superb. Thank you for joining us. My kids are outside in the garden as well. I'm not sure if they're in the paddling pool yet, but they will be, if not very, very shortly. Rom Tombler by the win. Montatham. A lot of people like Montatham. Okay, everybody's liking Montatham here. Graham, does the system take into consideration the race course? Sir Busker, low race was Chester. Which draw or position is key? So very quickly, I'm not quite sure what you mean by system, Graham. So if you could drop in what you mean by system. In the meantime, if you want to see the draw on that race, the one we just looked at, the 245, and then we're going to jump into the 315 because time is getting on, and I am once again way behind on the time. But if you want to have a very quick look at the draw, here's the draw impact values in this race here, and we can see here that Montatham and Sir Busker and Prompting actually all look to have by far the best draw in this race. Okay, let's move over to the 315. So this is the race we've been waiting for, the Qatar Stakes. Big race of the day, flat turf, 7 entries. Let's come out of the draw, but what? I'll show you the draw bias quickly. Draw bias in this race is Al Rayar. Okay, this horse is the draw bias favorite, but it's currently odds of 40. So it's not going to be personally a horse I want to bet. In fact, I'm going to remove Ornate. I'm going to remove Ken Colt. I'm going to remove Dubai Station, and I'm going to remove Al Rayar. All those horses are odds higher than 29 to 1. And that means they are not for me. That leaves us just 4 possible runners in this race. And again, we've got Batash, unsurprisingly, the short odds favorite in this race. So here's the question. Do you think Batash, this is a good price for Batash, or do you think this is insane? Is 1.34 insane? Making 34 pence to the pound return. Is that an insanely low odds? In the 2-place market, Batash is 1.14. In the 3-place market, Batash is 1.06. That's where we get into buying money. 1.06 for Batash to come in the top 3. That could be a good buy money situation. Let me know what you think about Batash, whether you think that's the market. A lot of fans here from Montatham in the previous race. Okay. Hi, Nigel. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Good to see you here over on Facebook. Okay, so let's come back to this race here. And I want to know your thoughts on Batash. We all know Batash is a great horse. Are those odds reasonable, or are they absolutely outrageous? And I seem to have not taken out Ornate either, who's sitting there at odds of 180. I'm definitely not going to be betting on Ornate at odds of 180. So the market is telling us there are only 3 runners in this race worth considering. And actually, it's telling us there are really only 2 runners worth considering. They're telling us that this race is between Batash and Liberty Beach. So this is a 5-furlong race. It's a sprint race. Let's start with the speed graphs. Okay, here's the speed graphs for this race. I'm going to open the full screen so we can see them. Right, we've got a lot of data here. So let's start by looking at sprint races. So I'm going to start by putting a filter in, and that filter is going to be flat turf, and it's going to be based on up to 6 furlongs. 6 furlongs is 1,320 yards. So I'm going to do flat turf here, and I'm actually going to push it maybe a little bit higher. I don't want to go as high as 1,500. So I'm going to do up to 1,500. That keeps it just a little bit lower than the sort of next distance that we commonly get. Okay, so that's what we're focusing on here. This goes back, look how far this goes back, all the way to 2016. Not interested in that far back. I'm only interested in kind of the last year or so of information, which gives us that. Okay, so now we've got this chart here. How can we use this? This is the flat turf sprint races for these horses. First thing we notice up here, Batash, bang, looking strong. Over here, here's his other horse races, Batash, Batash, Batash. Obviously, this horse is strong. We know this horse is exceptional. There's nothing surprising about it. But let's look at the other runners for a minute. Okay, the one dropping down here is Ornate. This one's the one at 180 degrees. That horse can go. We are not betting on that horse. Down here, this purple color is Dubai Station. Dubai Station is currently odds of 55. We're not going to be betting on that horse. That's going to go. Now, Al Rayar here, okay, Al Rayar, that's quite interesting. Al Rayar is actually sitting at odds of 39 to 1, so pretty high. If you remember, the 3 horses the market is telling us to look at is Batash, Liberty Beach, and Glass Slippers. However, Al Rayar here looks like they could put in a slightly surprise performance. I mean, still way lower on average than the others, but this last race was strong for that horse. So possibly a surprise from Al Rayar there. But the other 2 here, we've got Liberty Beach jumping around up here, the black line, and below it, Glass Slippers is that blue line. If we look at the trends, there's not much really to talk between them. They're both bouncing around the same area. They both look like possible threats. Between the 2, it's actually Liberty Beach who has the highest average speed rating over flat turf 5 furlongs. We can see that in these numbers here in brackets next to each horse's name. That number is a dynamic speed rating. It shows us the average speed rating for that horse based on the filter conditions we've set. I've set that filter to be just over 6 furlongs and flat turf only. I can reduce that down because obviously this is a 5 furlong race. So let's just reduce that distance down to 1,320 and see if anything changes. Let's bring all these horses back in. Let's see if anything changes. I'm going to immediately zoom in and we can see here nothing really changes at all. So let's do one last thing. Let's do good to firm and see if that changes anything. And where am I? 1, 2, 3. I'm going to take Ornate out. There's Ornate. So that horse is going to go. Then we've got Batash, Glass Slippers, and Aurora down here. So again, that makes Aurora not quite so good when we've brought it closer on the ground condition as well. That's when we see that horse start to drop out a little bit on the good to firm, which I think is what the ground's actually going to be today. This also changes the picture for Glass Slippers, and Liberty Beach looks to be the slightly stronger one. And obviously, Batash right up here. So how are we going to bet on this race? I don't think we really need to go any further because clearly Batash is the one to beat in this race. We all know that before we jumped in. The question is 1.34 a bet that you would be prepared to take? So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to see if you think Batash is worth odds of 1.34 or if that is just too low. So Robin over on YouTube, you think that Batash is getting on a little bit now. That's right. Graham thinks Batash is going to win, but the odds are not worthwhile. Robin's saying no bet in this race. And Wee Whiskey Dram, hey, hi Wee Whiskey Dram, great to see you back here again. Thank you for joining us over on YouTube. It's going on Liberty Beach. Who are you going on? If you've not yet told me, who are you going on? Please let me know. Okay, so for me, I think Batash is going to win, but those odds are too short. So let's see what else we've got going on in the market here. We can get Liberty Beach at evens to place. And that's not bad. We can get Batash at 1.14. Three place market gives Liberty Beach 1.39. And without the favorite, Liberty Beach has got odds of 2. If you remember in the place market, Liberty Beach was just over odds of 2. So actually, it makes more sense to bet in the 2-place market than the without favorite market, because obviously in the 2-place market, Liberty Beach, if Batash had an accident and came down, it doesn't matter what other horse wins if it beats Liberty Beach. If Glass Slippers beat Liberty Beach, we would still get the return in the 2-place market. But without the favorite market, if Batash had an accident, I pray God he doesn't, but and Glass Slippers then went on to win the race, we would lose. But the odds are lower. We'd expect the odds here to be higher than the 2-place market. So that doesn't make any sense. And we've also got this how far Batash is going to win market. So actually, you can get odds of 1.71 for Batash not to win. I mean, that's low. That's someone having a punt. 1.71. The market is not really formed. But these markets can be quite good. And at the end, I'll tell you what, let me know at the end, because this how far Batash beaten, how far a horse is going to win market, this can be a very, very great market to bet in if you know how to look at previous winning distances for horses. So if that's a strategy you'd like to look into at another time, let me know. I'll make a note or look into that, or maybe do a live event at some point. I do a couple every month anyway, so one of those could look at how we can predict the distance that a horse is going to win. But coming back to how we're going to bet in this feature race today, I think for me, I'm going to go for the place, and I see the problem is if I'm going for the place with Liberty Beach, under the assumption that we're expecting Batash to win, which everything points to him being able to do it. If we go for Liberty Beach and Glass Slippers, if you remember that speed graph, there was a difference, but Glass Slippers wasn't so far behind it could be a threat. So I would say that Liberty Beach and Glass Slippers could kind of come in, but the difference here of 1.4 to 2.16 is quite big. So the actual thing that I would do in this race is not bet, because I think the win market is far too low for Batash. I think Batash is probably going to be the most likely winner. But I think in the place market, Liberty Beach and Glass Slippers are kind of even. What we could do is we could split our stake here across the two, or we could come over here to the 3-place market and split the £25 stake over here in the 3-place market. The issue doing that, as you can see, is that if Glass Slippers doesn't come in that top 3, we're going to walk away with about a £4 loss. We're going to walk away with about a £10 loss. So the best thing to do here is not to bet. But since I said at the very beginning, I'm going to be placing a bet in every single race, I'm going to go for Liberty Beach in the 3-place market. I'm going to take a £9.80 small profit if this horse wins. I'll be very surprised if this horse doesn't come in the top 3. So for me, this is about as safe as it gets. And I'm going to take that bet there to effectively buy myself a few pounds. But what I would actually be recommending is not to bet in this race, because the market for me isn't really showing any good way to be betting in this race. The odds aren't working. The Batash's odds are too low. Liberty Beach's odds in the place markets are too low, with Glass Slippers having that possibility of contending. So I actually wouldn't be betting in this race at all. And actually, coming back here to the chat now, it looks like a lot of you agree. It looks like a lot of you aren't going to be betting in this race. It's just going to be one to sit back and watch. And that would be my recommendation as well. I think that's the most sensible thing to do in this race. I'm just making a note here of a couple of horses for the price pot. Okay, or the place accumulator. Right, okay, jumping over. I'm sorry, this is running on. Having started wanting to go faster, I've managed to slow down. I'm now running very, very behind. So let's jump back over. We still have 3 races to do at Goodwood today. So now we've done that major race. Now we've done that feature race. I'm going to speed up again. We're going to go through these much, much faster. So I'm going to go through the next 3 races. I'm going to do them super fast. I'm going to do them in about 10 minutes. Each of these 3 races. Then we're going to come to the chat. Then I'm going to give you the list of the horses that we've got in our place accumulator. And from there, I'm going to wish you a wonderful day. So let's go through these races. And here's how I'm going to go through them really fast. I'm going to start by using our quick short listing tools across all of them. So I'm going to start by doing the Monte Carlo simulator. I'm going to run a very similar process now for each of these 3 races so that we can get through them before racing starts in about 15-20 minutes. So this simulation is going to run. Who you want to bet in this race, I'd love to know. First race is in 20 minutes. Exactly, Richard. That's exactly what I said. A distance prediction tutorial has been requested by a few people. Let me make a note. I'm just making a note of that while that simulation is running. Okay, all right, made a note of that. Okay, that simulation is nearly finished there. Can you Dutch in 3-place market? Graham, yes, you can Dutch in 3-place market, but Dutches don't work in the place markets like they do in the win markets, because we have the possibility of, you can Dutch. It's not quite so simple, and you are far more likely to make a loss by mistake Dutching in the 3-place market. Just because of the fact that there are places and the odds don't work in the same way as the win market. So if you Dutch the 3-place market, you use exactly the same thing. You Dutch your bet, but you're much more likely to have an over round where you're going to make a loss on one of those horses. So you're not going to be able to get anything like the volume in. Okay, so that simulation has finished. Now I'm going to sort by horse. I'm going to note the top 3. Pablo Escobar, Desert Encounter, and Communique even. Communique, Desert Encounter, Pablo Escobar. I'm going to sort by the PR odds. Bang, Communique, Pablo Escobar, and then Desert Encounter dropping out of the top 3. So I'm going to remove that horse. I'm going to sort by 5278. Desert Encounter is back in there at the top. Pablo Escobar and Communique. So I'm going to put Desert Encounter back in. I'm going to look at the probabilities. Pablo Escobar by far at the top, La Dion, but that's not been indicated anywhere else, so I'm going to ignore that runner. And then Communique. So I'm actually going to remove Desert Encounter again. So you can see here, I'm just flying through these. VDW odds, this is a place, 92%. So I'm going to look at the top 4. Communique, Pablo Escobar are both in there. That's great. Desert Encounter has dropped back in again. So Desert Encounter has got some potential definitely in this race. Okay, moving on. I'm going to have a quick look at the PFP rating. Desert Encounter at the top, Communique, Pablo Escobar drops down a bit here as well. Okay, so that's very, very quickly what I'm going to look. I like Communique. I like Pablo Escobar. Communique seems to be the strongest to me. And then Pablo Escobar, possibly Desert Encounter, are coming in behind it there. I'm going to have a very quick glance at the speed graphs because I can use those very quickly to get an idea of the horses in this race. Let me zoom in. And I'm only interested in the ones that we've mentioned. There they are. Those are the three. And as we can see, they all look very, very close. So let's jump over to the market and see what we've got in the market. Okay, coming down to the 345. Desert Encounter is currently the favorite. Communique second favorite. Pablo Escobar dropping down here. We could Dutch all of these horses just to show you. We would make a profit of £12 if any of them come in. We can see the market thinks this race is going to be super competitive. They're all pretty much of a muchness. Communique was my personal favorite. We're going to struggle to get on more than one horse in here. In that very, very brief summary, Communique looked to be the favorite. In the place market, we can get 2.18. In the three place market, we can get 1.56. That's a little bit short. Let me see if we can get the 80-20 here. 80-20 in the three place market will still be profitable. We've gone through this so fast. I want to de-risk it. So if I'm going to bet in this race, I will do a £20 bet on Communique in the three place market here. And because when we do very, very fast analysis like this, we obviously want to de-risk our bet structure as much as possible. I will still walk away with a 20% return if Communique comes in the top three. And I'll do the other 20% of the stake in the win market, meaning that if Communique wins, we're going to make 100% return. Okay, so we're going to jump back into the next race now, the 420. And again, I would recommend spending more than the 2 minutes that we have just spent on these horses. I'm just noting down some of these runners here for place potentials. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. And I'll go through that list as well in a minute. Okay, so the 420 race, here we go. It's a nursery race, and there are no non-runners currently. We're going to start with the market, and the market is telling us there are none really to get rid of. So next, I'm going to start exactly the same way as before. I'm going to run a simulation. And as I say, I'm rattling through these now because I've spent too long on the previous races. So I apologize for that. But these are the lowest class races of the day. So we spent a lot of time on the major races of the day and the last three lower class races. And this is some of the way. And this is quite useful as well, because if you only got a few minutes, you want to have a quick fun bet, not part of your normal betting, not part of your long-term process. You haven't got much time. This is a way you can analyze very quickly, find the strongest runners very quickly, and then we can structure the bets based around the fact that we know we've only done this very, very quickly. So that simulation is running there. While it's just finishing off, I'm going to come back into the chat to see who you think you like in this race. So there's a lot of people here: Desert Encounter, Pablo, Peroto, Ken Colt to place. So there's a lot of difference of opinions in that race, which is not really surprising. Okay, this simulation is about to finish in a second. We can already take a quick glance while it's running because it looks like Thank You Next and Zamani are going to be sitting there in the top. So now that's finished, we're going to come out of it, and then we're going to go back in it, and I'm going to sort by bear with me a second and come back in. Okay, sort by the horse. And there we go. We've got Zumani, Thank You Next, Julie Johnson, and Peroto. I'm going to take the 4 because that's where the big break is. See how there's that big break between Peroto here and Say If You Will. So I'm going to take Zumani, Thank You Next, Julie Johnson, and Peroto from that simulation. I'm just going to mark those. Zamani, Peroto, Thank You Next, and Julie Johnston. Next thing I'm going to do is sort by PR odds and see where they sit. Zamani, Julie Johnston are sitting in there. Thank You Next, Peroto drop down. That's going to move them out a little bit for me. But if I sort by 5, 2, 7, 8, all 4 of those horses are in the top 4 as well. So Zamani, Julie Johnston, possibly the strongest. Looking here on our probabilities, the raw probabilities, Zamani again, and then Thank You Next, Julie Johnston, Peroto at the bottom as well. So Zamani still looking to be the strongest, followed by Julie Johnson, Peroto possibly the weakest out of those 4 runners. Checking days since last good race. All of them have had a good race recently. This is a 6 furlong race. So let's just have a quick look at speed figure on the race type. Zamani, again at the top by quite a distance to the rest. Peroto, Julie Johnston, thank you, next. So again, based on that, I'm going to jump very, very briefly over to the speed graph to have a quick look at what's going on there. And here we go. Julie Johnston is here. Zamani is looking strong. But let's just let me throw in a dynamic filter, flat turf, good to firm. There we go. Apply that filter. Okay, so up here we've got Zamani looking really, really strong. And we've already mentioned that. The other horse, we've said Zamani looks to be the strongest anyway, followed by Julie Johnston. Julie Johnston, not maybe quite, I think it's one of these actually, risque. Julie Johnston over here, not looking quite so good when we filter by flat turf and ground conditions. Let me just reset that graph for you so we can see the whole thing fresh again. Zamani definitely looks to be the one to beat here. And that's going to be then, in that very, very brief summary, that's going to be the one I'm going to go on. So coming back over to the market, moving down to the 420 at Goodwood. Let's take a look at the market. Zamani is the current favorite, 2.96. Again, I want to de-risk this. We've not spent very long. Actually, Julie Johnston is the second favorite. Thank you, next is a bit further down. So in the place market, we can get 1.45 on Zamani. Oh, but that is 3 places in the 2-place market. And you know I don't really like going that. It's only 1.73, not much of a difference. And in the 4-place market, 1.25. That's too short. And even in that very, very brief look, I would expect Zamani to be better than the 4-place market. So I'm going to do an 80-20. We could obviously Dutch these runners as well. But I'm going to just go with Zamani, who looks to be the strongest from speed graph. And this is a speed race. Came out the strongest on the PR odds, came out the strongest on the probability, was in the top of the 5278, and also from the Monte Carlo simulator. But I'm going to de-risk it. I'm going to do an 80-20 bet. I'm going to come in here. You can see that essentially if Zamani doesn't win this race, I'm going to make just above break even. We're going to make a couple of pounds profit. So maybe sort of a 10% profit on stake. If Zamani doesn't win the race, that's fine. I'm happy to make a 10% profit or break even if this horse comes in the top 3. And then obviously if it wins, that's where our profit's going to be in this particular race. Okay, and now I'm going to jump into the final race, and then I'm going to come back to the chat to see who you are going to be betting on. So I've jumped out over here into the 455. This is the final race. It's a maiden filly stake. And I mean, let's be honest, any of these horses could win. We're going to have to use the market because none of these horses have got a race. So, and unsurprisingly, the horse that's the favorite is the horse that's got the most races. But we're not going to bet in this market a horse that's 130. We're probably not going to bet on a horse that's 32. That still leaves 8 horses in the market. The best thing to do, don't place a bet in this race. That is by far and away the best thing to do. But I'm going to follow the same process. Just remember, there is very, very little data. You can see we've almost got no data here to base this simulation on. The best data that this simulation is going to be basing on is the Betfair odds, because we're including the odds in this simulation. So that's going to be the best data that we can get in this simulation. And in fact, I'm going to do another simulation off this, so bear with me for another 60 seconds longer, because I'm going to do another simulation. I'm going to show you a way where we can use purely the Betfair odds to run a Monte Carlo simulation. And I don't think I've ever looked at that before. So just jumping over while that simulation is running, Peroto, Pablo, and Philippe is on risque. Okay, right. So that simulation's nearly finished. We can already see here that Ventura Diamond and Sarsaparilla are going to be the strongest based on that simulation. We can see that straight away. Okay, so let's exit here. Okay, just come back in so you can see that clearly. Reopen the results of the simulation and sort by horse. Okay, and there we can see it very clearly. Sarsaparilla and Ventura Diamond are clearly the leaders based on that simulation. Now I'm going to come back in just before I go to the market and do another simulation. But first, we're going to sort by PR odds. Sarsaparilla is here. Ventura Diamond is 4th. Sorting by 5278, we've got Ventura Diamond, number 1, Sarsaparilla 4th. So they're both in the top 4. Looking at pure probabilities, they're all very, very close. Actually, this is putting Amberella up there. So Amberella possibly a threat. Sarsaparilla is lower. I mean, this is a maiden fillies race. This is a race to not place money in. Essentially, what we're seeing here is it could be any of these runners. Okay, I mean, most of them haven't had a race yet, so we really don't know what to go on. So I'm going to do one last thing. I'm going to show you how to run this simulation just using the Betfair odds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out, by clicking on the headers, I'm going to remove all of the other ratings from this simulation. Okay, now I'm going to come to next, and then you see this 15% that appears here. I'm going to change that. That's the default variance figure, but I am going to change that, and I'm going to put that up to I might even put it up to 50%. Okay, 50%. Let's go with 50%. I'm only doing it that high because this is a maiden race. And now I'm going to run that simulation. And it's going to run it just based on the Betfair odds, assuming that there is a possibility of them being 50% either way. And then we're going to see which of the horses come out best. And I'm doing it with that high variance. That's very high. And the reason I'm doing that is just because this is a maiden race. So I want to try and get as big a scope as possible from the simulation. While that's running, I'm going to jump over and see if any of you are going to be betting in this last race. Leave me a message if you are going to be betting in this last race. Or if it's going to be one that you are going to miss. My recommendation is you miss this last race. It is definitely not one that you want to be following in on. Okay, simulation is now up to 70%, and we can see already here, it looks like Sarsaparilla and Ventura Diamond are going to be the two to go for. Okay, so now that's completed. I'm just going to exit it. And I'm going to come back in so we can see it exactly. And there we go again. Not quite as far ahead, not quite so comfortable. You can see Sarsaparilla, Ventura Diamond look to be the strongest. Then Rhythm, Amberella, Beautiful News, and more in the next block before First Lot and Seclusion at the back. So I'm going to jump over to the Betfair market, and let's see what we've got here in the 455 at Goodwood. Okay, Sarsaparilla, Ventura Diamond are two favourites, and Sarsaparilla is currently the favourite. Ventura Diamond is nearly co-favourite, just a little bit higher. So those are the two there. We could Dutch these two horses. That would be one possibility for this race, and that would net us an £18 profit to a £25 stake should either of them win. In the place market, we could go 1.46, 1.55 to 3 places. If we split our stake there to 3 places, that's going to put us at only £11 profit, and we're going to need both of them to place. So I'm not really seeing much benefit there. We could come to the 2 place market, but again, you're going to see the same. Only one of them places in the 2 place market, we're still going to make a loss. So I don't think that's really a particularly good bet. And in the 4 place market, well, we would definitely need both of them to come in. But then in a race like this, we're not seeing very much return really for that. So for me, the only way to get involved in this race, and I do not recommend you get involved in this race, but the only way to get involved in this race is to Dutch. Sarsaparilla has just dropped odds massively from 3.3 to 3.1. I would expect to see that come back up shortly. But that would not be a race that I would Dutch in. Okay, so that's how I'm going to go in now. I'm going to jump over now. I'm just making a note of those 2 horses there quickly. And then I'm going to say thank you. If you need to head off, thank you very, very much for joining today. I'm just going to quickly go through the horses that I would put into a place accumulator. I'm going to place that Dutch bet here because we've done that. But I do not recommend you betting this race. I'm doing it. It's a fun bet. I'm going to watch every race today. Do not recommend you betting this race. It's totally up in the air. Okay. So I've got that in there. I'm just coming back over now, over to the chats here. Avoid, miss, John, Nigel, both avoiding. Thomas is going on Ventura Diamond. David's on More. Graham, avoid. It's deadly. John Bell, only if there's a market mover. Robin, not looking good for the place pot. This. Okay. So here are the horses that I'm going to be putting into a place accumulator today for a bit of fun. Goodwood Day 4. In the 110, I'm going to be going for Al-Kakar. In the 145, I'm going to be going for Altika. In the 215, My Oberon. In the 245, Montatham and Sabuska. In the 315, Liberty Beach and Glass Slippers. In the 345, Communique and Pablo Escobar. And the 455, Sarsaparilla and Venture Diamond. So those are the horses that I'm going to put into a place accumulator today to see for a small amount, just for a bit of fun, see if we can hit it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Today is the last day of the live Goodwood analysis from me, Michael Wilding, and the race advisor, www.raceadvisor.co.uk. It's been wonderful. I've had a great time. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. I hope you've enjoyed the last 3 days too. It's been absolutely brilliant for me. If you would like to see more of these live events, more of these live analyses during the big festivals, please drop me an email, let me know, leave a message on the site, jump into the forum, let us know there. If you've not yet created an account on the Race Advisor, head over, create an account now. We are your extended horse racing family. We can talk about horse racing with you, and we can help you get better at it, and we can help you achieve that horse racing success through analysis, through strategies, through creating your own systematic processes. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. I hope you walk out of Goodwood with a profit, and I will send an email out tomorrow with an analysis of the major race taking place tomorrow afternoon. Have a wonderful weekend. I wish you well. Please stay healthy. Please stay safe. And I will see you very soon in another live event. Take care. Thank you very much. Don't forget to follow the Race Advisor on Facebook and on YouTube. And I will see you very soon. Have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the sun.